Hello and welcome to Meet BOA Authors, a collaboration between BOA Editions and Writers and Books. My name is Dan Hurd. I'm the Director of Adult Programs. Writers and Books is a literary arts center in Rochester, New York. We offer readings, workshops, and literary programming for people of all ages and backgrounds. You can find more information at our website, wab.org. Please say hello in the chat and feel free to submit any questions. Books are available through our bookstore, Ampersand Books. The link is in the button below. We're so happy to have Renia White with us this evening. First, we'll hear her read, then she'll be in conversation with Peter Connors, publisher and executive director of BOA Editions. Renia White's debut poetry collection strikes up a conversation, considering what's being said, what isn't, and where it all comes from. From her vantage point of Black womanhood, she probes the norms and mores of everyday interactions. Casual conversation pulls apart what seems sound in an effort to see. What did we make here? How is it going? Casual Conversation is a Blessing the Boat selection chosen by editor-at-large Aracelis Grimay. Originally from Maryland, Renia White's family relocated to the south side of Atlanta the same year she turned 13. She went on to earn her BA from Howard University and her MFA from Cornell University, where she also taught. A Boat Fellow, she received the 2015 Hurston Wright Foundation College Writers Award in Poetry. Her work appears in such publications as The Offing, Slice, Witness, Southern Indiana Review, and elsewhere. Renia, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Hi, everyone. All your comments are going to make me cry, just so you know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm here alone now, I guess, but I don't know. I'm with y'all, and that's really dope. I'm just so grateful that you folks are here, and that I get to share from this book with you all. If you know me, I've been making these poems. Look, I'm gonna cry. Yeah, and it's just really special to be able to, work with the craft that has spoken to me for so long, and for people to see something in that, you know. So I won't talk too much. I'll set my little timer here. I know I have 20 minutes or so, and I'll start with the first and second poem, and then I'll bounce around. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again to BOA, to Aracelis Grimay. Thank you so much, to everyone who's here. Dan, Writers and Books, Ampersand, everybody who has supported. It really means a lot, and I'm just really great to read with you all and to talk with Peter afterwards. So I'll stop talking now. Hearsay. Okay. So you were telling me, the girl dared say, I can't just let you have my life. Not like that, Your Honor. And he sentenced her to a bedazzled tightrope and a room without a window and a son that doesn't know her name. Middle passage for this. Think the girl doesn't know her own shame, given that face she wears? Think she doesn't know where she is ain't where she was put down to begin with? That her first season was someone else's harvest. Some people get to want and need and be met in it. Some just the mouth, just the teeth. Some eat and they say, why all the hunger? As far as you know, nothing can kill you. I tumble out my own side window sometimes. It's all the leaning and looking, the hoping to notice a game-changing glory. My friend likes to say, as long as he is here, I will not fall all the way down. But let something in me leap off its own mantle, and I am all eyes cast upward and beyond, welling, how? And despair. And all the women, all the sunless women. Yet every sky I've needed for its beauty has surrendered. The clouds do go there, the snow and streamers, the gilded do-rag atop my head. I better not worry nor hang, lest atrocity. But people can only save you if the timing's right. Cue the lights. Mother's on enough medication to heal something, I hope. Meanwhile, Black women vote for who we must, for the God flock's better wind. The same week Kim Porter died, I briefly lost my vision on a Broad Street bound J. My head buzzed in pain. I was a circuit for worry to get home to. But this city ain't my home. This frame ain't the same one I always had. Ain't the same one I see in the God mirror. Sometimes I think, please don't let me almost die, because it will happen quicker. Once it's over our fence, it just dies easier. Don't ask me how. All the numbers say it. And my body dare touch a brink? On a crowded train, in a city that ain't mine, while I'm off the shore of myself. And she left behind all that joy. You know how many on their way to joy, and then down the center of it all, a bright unknown. Then the flowers, the refrain. I said I wouldn't talk too much, but because I'm going to read the poem I'm going to read next, To Banish, I just want to say there are a lot of poems, or not a lot, but about a handful of poems that in some way mention or deal with my sister, often my older sister. And I just want to say that they're very close to my heart. And this one, To Banish, I remember workshopping here at Cornell. I'm in Ithaca right now to do a reading tomorrow in person. And yeah, it just feels really present, the way that the sister poems became such a vehicle in casual conversation. That was not the intention, but I owe that in part to the workshop, because they were some of the few poems that went almost untouched, right? They had fewer comments than others, I'll say that. To Banish. A hole in a window is a hole in a hole already functioning. A hole in a mother is a daughter in a twin bed and another out too late, banished again wherever she is, beyond the back bedroom and its blister of carpet, beneath the Venetian blinded window, a daughter in a twin bed awaiting her return. A hole in a sister is a hole in a wall, is a window, a way to enter what hurt you where it hurt you. A mother and daughter argue about a boy who would unhinge his wrist against a sister told not to return if she chooses to leave again, out late again, to let the puckers settle. A hole is a window, is a hole in a house, can let in things unwanted, the way thinking yourself unwanted can bring you to a window with its own tapping, plea, and whisper. A sister, out of bed, pulls with elbow crease under pit, her sister through the gap, sure to clasp the open with a sound meant for hearing by her mother next door, never quite sleeping, until she hears the close again. You could have come in through the front door. In this town, there is a girl soundless as a good bulb, so quiet there is nothing to report. One day she saw something, and after that, everyone could see it on her although it wasn't there. That kind of girl. Somewhere else, a pair, though uncoupling, eats dinner at a table the shape of a seashell. Some things are real ornate here, heavy at the bottom. There is a house of unloved things in which the plant, the table runner, the gilded mirror all say, that ain't what we call this place. And, by the way, at that couple's dinner, beginning the end of all soft, the woman asked her lover, when I die, will you speak at my funeral? Say I was good. Depends on when you die, he said. She would have unfastened herself to know, but luckily, at that hour, a church congregation had been praying the wind westward. In this town, where preachers practice their sermons in garages for the acoustics, all the signs mean what they say. And when something burns down, it isn't all together again in the next scene. When you look as if you'll speak, a dying woman turns to you and adds, before you ask, yes, I did send my references. Before I even entered the room, in went strangers promising that I would be good. A different, younger woman overhears and complains that no one ever asked her any of the questions her life has answered. And yet, yes, the door is golden on both sides. Yes, it is easier to break what you barely touch. No, there is nothing you can do. I'm about halfway through. I am not prepared for the inverse of this. If everything always brings with it its opposite, every time something happens, one can ask, what if it hadn't? And still be relevant. How dangerous a logic we've made. Proof is what happens afterward, to show us the during was true. We had to find a way to promise what we are doing is worthwhile. So we decided to imprint the now for later, after. Perhaps we cannot be trusted to remember. Perhaps we know that a new dream is a correction of the old one, no matter what we mean to feel. So you walk the street 2 minutes too late, and so you live. Or miss your old lover, or your new one, or in pursuit of ourselves, we can meet another us, and so on. Then, one day, a sad woman enters you and clears your desk. Says, I am the new. And what do you say to such a gentle intrusion, so sure of itself? You'll think someone else organized it. You'll think it must be yours. I just want to say thanks again, and how exciting this is, and how wonderful and terrifying. Can you tell I'm terrified? I'm terrified, but that's all right. Horrified, not just terrified. Don't want to say anything about this. I don't know if Annie's here, but love Annie, the A in this poem, who told me about a gentle thing she did for a bird, and I couldn't help myself. So here we are. Horrified. In her town, A buries a yellow bird, refers to it as a gesture of care, because she can see the world in the small, knows that a bird is a speck of the God flock. I lean in because I need to, for the sake of staying around, in the name of the sun inside us all. Drone to her about my makings, and then she tells me this. I can't help myself. I needed the dead wonder, needed someone to know I too have my ear to the root. It is between us now, the yellow bird that jilts us. Another kind of tender poem. Beneath. When I say love is an undertaking, I don't mean the man speaks so highly of the woman it's as if she's dead. I am not invoking the feeling of having a body that requires tending. I do not mean the expense, and will not argue with the man who tells me poetry is like life insurance. But if it were, the way desiring protection can leave one imagining dying, based off seeing it happen to someone else, based off the probability that it will certainly happen to everyone, even the man you love, I'm saying, I don't need to see the intros to know. We are wired to make it stop or happen neither. One evening, in an effort to keep him living, a couple, though uncommitted, put all their hands beneath a guy choking on his own vomit. To turn him toward the light, I figured. To spare him such an unloving end, the last train car, none of the stillness dying merits. From my seat, I watched and thought, God, we are being outlived somewhere always. That death is time successfully closing fingers around a wrist. That love is choosing to make it fail. I gave myself choices. I don't know why I did that. Why everybody want to be singular? I insist upon the chorus of myself. A lover I never had stands at his kitchen counter, hiding behind the last clean glass, head bowed, crying because I'm away, or not his yet. Or he is looking for me in a mug or an upturned palm, the way a woman in a tarot shop, that is really her living room, would. That happened once, and it was doing the telling. The man and I shouldn't have been. I didn't realize, even when she didn't bother to read our fortunes differently, all our palms in the same room. She stared at the floor and said, "You want to be good. You want people to think you are good." He is, and I am, and we are as now as sometimes I reap shower apologies from men I tried to throw myself away from, who came back from the almost left to tell me, girl, I suppose I could, but I'm tired. Mole on the lip of one, scar at the brow of another. Reduced to the markings, men are larger narratives with a single lingering detail some other force inscribed. One walks into the front of my temple. Bird smash into the door before knocking. It looks like everything he's ever gone through, every permeable, feminine, everlasting. I am watching from the tower, hoping he makes it all the way up here. So I know it can be done. I believe, but I'd like to know too. Apologies, a sound. There's a sound. I don't know if it's drowning me. Is the sound okay? Someone confirm the sound's okay. I apologize if you all can hear that noise. We do not hear anything. Amazing. Awesome. Okay. I can, so apologies. Okay. Gather them and give them back to me. After Toni Morrison. I don't have the wherewithal to die today. Not with you here. Thank you for that. You say things could be simple, and sometimes they are. It's true. We only need what we need in order to have all we need. Nothing more but love, which is a texture you say you don't understand. But look at this bread in my mouth, your hand in mine, although we barely touch because how outlandish to feel even further beyond the sure blessing. So your hand isn't in mine, but I feel it there when I am asleep, awake, inside my mind room. I touch everything I walk by or into. But you, here, and us with hands in case we need them, I think this is it. But if you want to make it more complicated, I agree. Last poem. I know you don't need me. We are far beyond need. All of us wanted, tethered to some kind of want, wretched or not. There are too many of us to explain otherwise. Someone wanted this reality to be possible for me. Someone wanted me into existence, and I know you don't need me, but when I was born, a song began to play, and I like it. It is playing for my liking exclusively. If you touch me, you'll have touched a someone rightly loved and lived for. Now, on purpose, I have requested something small that you owe me. Give it here because it's owed, not because I asked. I never did ask, but told you. I am here and I want to be. Plush, a dark, lush stole around the neck of a woman whose gait says, see me when you see me. I mean, really look. Or one day, a tree fell and announced itself, became your kind of loud. Thank you.
Hey, that was wonderful. Renia, thank you so much. I want to say before I ask any questions that people are welcome to write in a question too, and I'm happy to read it in the little chat section. So feel free to do so. So Renia, I'd love to talk about just like sort of the nuts and bolts of this collection. This is your debut collection. And so I know you worked on it for a long time, and you worked on some of it in grad school, I believe. So maybe, and I love to ask this question, especially for people who are trying to get their first collection published. I think it's really helpful to hear those stories. So can you tell us some about this collection, how long you worked on it, how it came together, and maybe the path toward publication for you?
Of course. And also, I'm going to say thank you 55 times. So just prepare. Thank you again, Writers and Books and Peter, for the question in the space. Yeah, so, I mean, these are in a lot of ways the poems I've been making that I've just sharpened toward the collection, the casual conversation sort of container, right? But I studied journalism in undergrad. I was always kind of a poet, in secret, I suppose. Well, not in secret. People knew, but I didn't know what to do with it in order to do anything with it in the world. So I took a creative writing workshop with Tony Medina, and there I learned what an MFA program was my junior year at Howard. And I applied, and I got in, and I went, and it was interesting. I made a lot of poems. And I started working on what I thought would be my first book, and it just went through a lot of iterations. Poems cycled out. I knew that I wanted the poems to be this kind of strange underground network of, folks talking to each other, like a sort of beeps and boops and buzzes. I don't know how to explain it, but I wanted a particular kind of machine. So it was really about, once I had a bunch of poems, just sharpening them towards the vision that I had for the first book. And it took a while to kind of get it right. But I mean, I don't even know if I got it right. But yeah, that's kind of how it worked out. And I didn't send to many contests. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but out of all the iterations that I had, I might have sent to, I don't know, over 5 years, maybe about 6 book contests. The year that it was chosen by Araceli Skirmay, thank you so much, I sent to 1 other contest. And that was just kind of how I chose to do this thing. I knew there were different ways to do it. And that just seemed to me like it would help to affirm me as I, tried to put this work out in the world, to know that, it could make it past, that sort of hurdle. But I don't necessarily think that it was the only way, right? It was just sort of the way that I chose. Also because I knew that I wasn't going to send it out a whole lot, et cetera. So it was helpful for me to find opportunities that it really seemed like it could work for, and then shoot for those. I hope that answers.
You mentioned journalism. Oh yeah, no, it's wonderful. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, since you mentioned journalism, I'm curious, do you see much interaction with your poetry and with your journalism training?
There's this episode of Versus that features Torrene Greathouse, and I love it because she talks about originally studying journalism and moving towards poetry as a way of doing more truth-telling in a way. And I think that what turned me a little bit away from journalism was that I wanted to just really think across time, and I just wanted to do stranger things, bring in different voices, say things that you might not be able to say in journalism. But I do think I retained this idea of urgency. I mean, when you study journalism, if you especially study it at the university level, one of the things that it usually has in common is you'll come into your major classes and you'll have to do a news quiz, right? And you don't know what might be on the test, but it's just major headlines from all around the world, right? And it just teaches you to always kind of know what is going on, what are people saying. So I think that level of it has always stuck with me, that yes, I think I do care about what is generally pressing, right? And I think there's a way to approach what's generally pressing that is a little different from journalism, right? That poetry allows. So yeah, and I think I was always interested also in like reportage, right? The idea that the speaker is reporting, perhaps, thinking about witness poetics, things like that, right? Which you might have come across, but this idea that, the speaker has a role that they're playing and that they can choose to play on behalf of actual people in the world. And so maybe there's a connection there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of something, a line that Araceli's put into her foreword, which I love. And she calls your work intimately political, which is such a, first of all, I'm like, I just love that's such a classic Araceli's way to like phrase something, and it's so evocative and so descriptive and also, open. And so I'm curious, like, what do you think of relating to your work when you hear that phrase, intimately political? What does that speak to you about your work?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, honestly, says all the words for all the things. I think from that forward, I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. Oh, wow, that's amazing. I actually don't know if I'm doing that, but I love that you see that in the word. Right? All these beautiful things, beautiful phrases. Intimately political. I mean, life is political. I mean, what isn't political, right? So when I think about it, when I think about the intimacy of it, yes, right, that there's this intention toward, what were you saying? What are you saying? Like, what's going on? How are you? Right? Like, there's this intention toward thinking about the reader as someone who I am personally coming to sort of chat with about these larger collective concerns, right? To connect with in an intimate way, right? I think of the speakers in these poems as, speaking as if they're speaking to a loved one, speaking as if they're speaking to someone where there isn't a need for pretense in that way. And so maybe those spaces are often safer for us to navigate those things that are political about us and our worlds. But I mean, we have to navigate them anyway, right? It is the world, right? So I think there is this way in which casual conversation is dealing with, that kind of ironic relationship that we have with what's supposed to be out there, that is always sort of in here as well. Like, how could it not be? I am here, and so it's here. Yeah. I feel like I'll keep talking if I don't stop myself.
That's great. That's perfect. The way that you're speaking about it too, again, leads me to another question, which is there are a lot of references to prayer in your work and to God. And so I'm curious about the intersection of faith and poetry, and for you, how they maybe inform and also challenge each other.
Absolutely. I mean, faith and poetry. I mean, we are in a larger hand, I think the poems are always sort of gesturing toward that understanding there is something bigger, right? What is this bigger thing? And yeah, I think poetry is a place where we get to hold stuff that's too big to hold, right? And so I think faith is one of those things, whether we're talking about, what we're sort of like worshiping or praising, right? Like the actual sort of entity, right? Or, the faith that we carry, that we must in order to sustain, right? Which is connected to that larger entity we might believe in, right? I just want to be respectful of folks' beliefs, etc. But I think that poetry feels like a place to, even if faith seems slim, right? A place to come and hold even that, like the idea of how slim it might feel, to hold the mustard seed, right? And to sort of like zoom in on it as well, right? Like, what's the texture of the mustard seed, right? Like, if that's all we have. I think it, in the way that faith is about, works unseen, right? I think that poetry tries to make seen, make felt, make heard, to deal with that unseen. And so it feels like a really great office for thinking about our relationship to spirit, to faith, to something bigger. Yeah.
It's interesting how that speaks to me also of the idea of intimately political. There's something very closely related with all those things, which makes sense. It's all in there.
Yeah,
I'm also curious.
Together in my brain. Oh, sorry.
Everything's what?
I was just saying everything's
please
together in my brain. It's just a soup, one big soup.
Yeah. I'm curious too. So it's unusual to have a collection with two poems with the same title, and they're not numbered or anything. And then of course you have. So I'm speaking of Casual Conversation, the two poems, and then also of course the title of the book. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what about Casual Conversation specifically resonated so strongly with you? Maybe it's just a concept, and then also the work specifically to pick it as the title for the collection.
Yeah, I mean, there were initially a lot more tries at Casual Conversation poems. The two that are here are the ones that I felt like the other ones kind of fell into these in a way. And these two really just sort of did the most with the concept that I thought, if the concept is even really, one thing. I feel like here in the collection, I was really interested in the idea that everything has little interchangeable parts, right? That when we speak about one thing, another thing is also uttered, right? And so I think that the poems that survived or, that are here, they differently deal with this idea of, trying to talk about the ghastly, the large, the ways in which we have to, in which it becomes casual, in which it cannot, right? Like all of those sorts of things that were in the concept for me, which became so huge, and it seemed like everything could go into it. The poems that are here, I felt like they oriented us, or at least oriented me in ways of thinking about casual conversation as a concept, if you were interested, right? But I didn't know that it was necessary to do that over and over, right? I thought that it was enough to just have the two that would sort of bring us to little spaces to pause and maybe consider this concept of casual conversation and what it could mean. But I didn't necessarily want it to feel as if it had to mean just one thing, right? And I think that's why I was drawn to it. This was not the original name of the collection at all. And even when I was making the Casual Conversation poems, I didn't think that would be the title. But it just became, the concept just became one in which I felt a lot of things fit. This idea that, is there anything casual about a life? Is there any such thing as casual conversation? What could we call that, right? Once you talk about something real, once you talk about something that's about human beings, the sticky stuff, can anything be casual anymore? And how we must still treat it casually if we want to sustain. And so on, right?
Yeah. We spoke a little bit before you read about the cover art for this. This is, by the way, the cover of the book. And I know that meant a lot to you to have this artist's work represented, to have this work. Can you just speak some about the art itself and the artist and why that was so meaningful to you?
I just love her work. I just love Evita Susanna's work. And this this image, Shotgun Boogie, the concept of sistering, the doubling, something being here while the other thing is present, things being adjacent and making the thing different. It just felt sure. It just felt like the cover when I saw it. I love the colors, etc. And I just love Evita's work in the way that there's just so much emotion in the eyes and the hands, the small, right? But those very sort of expressive, sort of gestures often, they just really transform a piece. And so I was just really excited to have this as the cover, and you should check her work out. Inhabits Zeno. She's wonderful.
And you shared there's going to be work of hers on, was it Indiana Review? Is that right?
Yes, Southern Indiana Review.
Southern Indiana.
Her next cover, I think. Don't quote me on that, but she will have art on the cover of Southern Indiana Review soon. Yes.
It's very cool. I'm curious, is there any like book or poets or anybody that you're reading right now that you're very excited about or that you want to shout out?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm reading 2 books right now. Kimi Alabi's Against Heaven, right? I have it right here. I haven't finished it, but I think it's amazing. And I think I actually finished it, but now I'm just reading it out of order. Best Barbarian by Roger Reeves, also amazing. But yeah, I mean, there are so many good poetry books, right? I almost want to say A Billion People. But yeah, I know that I'm reading those 2 now to answer your question. But everybody's fabulous.
And somebody asked the question, could we please have the book cover artist name written out?
Yeah. Wait. I can do it for her.
Yeah. I will, how do I spell it? And then maybe we can read it out, write it out too. It's Evita, Evita. Oh, somebody did it. Look at that.
Ashley did it. Awesome.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, it was so great hearing you read these poems and just getting to chat with you for a little bit. And I'm going to bow out. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us with a poem, that would be excellent. It was so great speaking to you. Thanks so much. And congratulations on the book.
As a freshman in college, I enjoy writing. Read. I know everyone says that, right? Read, live, encounter really strange things, encounter things that keep encountering things you love, have obsessions, follow them, write about everything that occurs to you to write about and write about it again and put it away and then come back to it and mess with it. Just keep thinking bigger, right? About what could be written about, like what could be your subject, what could be your project, right? Right. I think, yeah, just getting as much practice as you can, taking in other people's voices, but also trying yours out, trying your hand at different things. I think that's going to be the absolute best way to grow and improve. But also time will do it for you. And life surely. I hope that answers. Thank you for the question. I'm just going to read Bright, 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 which is the final poem in the collection. Thank you again for coming. I'm so grateful. I'm going to weep. I'm going to cry in the club all night. Okay. Bright, bright, bright. I ask the hue to smatter me lovely in your name. Yellow bloused barista, black girl with careful hands. All you did was wear a color. And here I am, wishing all the lights aglow in your hope room. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Very exciting.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank Peter for the questions. Buy the book. The link is in the button below our faces. And I hope you can join us next week, where our poet will be Heather Sellers. And thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care.